Hey guys, I'm going to give you an update today where I stand in my 78 F-150 project. This will be part 2 of my 05 Super Duty axle swap. I got the front axle about 95% complete. I got the back axle mocked up, ready for the shackle flip. And got a few little issues back there I'll show you here in a minute, but I'll bring the camera in close to show you what that's front. Alright guys, well here's the high pinion Dana 60 out of the 05 Super Duty up underneath the front end. I don't know if you can see the truck, but it's sitting on the springs. It's in here solid. You got the shocks in most of the way. Got the track bar done. I got those radius arm mounts done. Spring mounts done. I still have to get the steering situated here. Right now I just have the factory center link coming off the steering box, just kind of mocked up into the Super Duty flange. But I'll get to that here in a little bit. I gotta buy that new link and then cut it and place it. Alright, so the first thing that I had to do was make these new radius arm mounts. The Super Duty radius arms are a little bit wider than my F-150 frame. So I had to build these mounts. This is all 3/16 plate. MIG welded some of it, stick welded some of it. I ended up having a plate the bottom here to make it wider, put in these gussets here to give it strength, and I tied it in. Move the camera real quick, bear with me, trying to make it too dizzy. You can see here I made this bracket here which ties into the cross member just like the factory mounts did, and it's all, I mean, it's rock solid, it ain't gonna go nowhere. So that's how I accomplished that. There is a look at the passenger side mount. Real happy how everything turned out. It seems like it's gonna be real solid. I did have one little screw up here. I wanted to plate the back of this, but during my mock-up somehow I put the plate on the inside of the mount, welded it all in, and then you can see I had interference here with the actual radius arms. So I'm eventually gonna plate the back side of this and weld it all in. I just haven't got to it yet, and it's not really, I don't think it's all that necessary, because if you look at the factory Super Duty radius arm mounts, they're half of what these are. So this is definitely going to be stronger than it was. Alright, then the next issue I had to work out doing the Dana 60 to this truck is I wanted to keep the factory spring mounting locations. So I had to build these brackets here that tie in from the knuckle to the actual differential. Now, started looking at the passenger side, it wouldn't have been that bad to weld all this stuff in, but this side's cast and I didn't have any real good solid way of welding it. So I built this bracket which utilizes the factory Super Duty metric bolt. So it's bolted into the C just like it was from the factory, and then 3/16 plate over to here, and then I got nut and bolted over here. And what this does, this allows me to use the factory spring buckets and utilize the factory spring mounting locations without having to change a bunch of stuff on the actual frame of the truck. Right now I'm currently running the factory springs on the 3-inch lift spacers. I'm eventually going to go to a 4-inch lift spring, which will swap these out, but it'll all bolt up in the factory location. The next issue that I had was shock mounts. Now I'll move the camera again and I'll show you what I did there. Alright, so you can see here I utilized the factory Super Duty shock mounts right where they were. I did have to open them up a little bit and then put a spacer in there to make the shock that was for the F-150 work, and it's going to work fine. I had to get just the right length bolt to fit all that in there, and when I'm done I'm going to go through and make an actual parts list of nuts and bolt size and everything, so if anybody else ever wants to do the swap, it's actually a pretty straightforward swap. Now up top, alright, then up top here I just used the factory shock mount, and I just unbolted the 2 bolts, moved it up, bolted the lower bolt into the upper hole, and then just welded the shock mount to the frame rail, and that gave me the ability to run these Skyjacker shocks, and they have 13 inches of travel. So I got 7 inches up travel, 6 inches of down travel, and as you can see over here where the spring bumpers are, from here to here is about 4 inches. So when I do the 4-inch lift spring, they'll give me about 5 inches before I hit the bump stops, and then with the bump stop squish, it should put the shocks right where I wanted them. I could have went with a little bit shorter shock, but this is the ones that had the actual overall length that I needed. They just happen to have a lot of travel. So, you know, eventually I can go with something a little bit different, maybe buy Fox remote reservoir adjustable shocks where I can actually get it dialed in. But this will do for fine for right now, I'm pretty sure. Alright, the next issue I had was the front drive shaft. So I'm going to readjust the camera again. And I'll show you what I did there. Alright, so what I did to utilize a factory F-150 drive shaft in the Dana 60 was I went to Jeff's Bronco Graveyard and I picked up this 1330 front slip yoke. It's about 2 inches shorter than the factory one, which works out just about great. You can see right now it's right at the end of the splines, sitting at ride height, so I got plenty of slip out, plenty of slip in. And then this is a 1330 to 1350 bastard joint that I put together. I could have ordered it, but I ended up buying the 2 different U-joints and just putting it together because they had them out in the parts house and I wanted to get it all hooked up. But I mean, it works. It's going to work fine. The drive lane angle's not perfect, but it's not much off of what it was from the factory. And I got plenty of room. I'm not going to have any clearance issues. And this truck's got these gigantic long tube headers, which are kind of stupid. But I was worried about clearance there. That's fine. Good to go. So that's the front drive shaft. Move on to the track bar now. Show you what I did there. Alright, so the next issue I was having was, what am I going to do for track bar mount? I was really going to try to use the factory Super Duty track bar ball joint mount on the axle side, but I could not get the angle even close to where I need it, and the steering geometry would have been just out the window. So what I ended up doing was I went to Tractor Supply and I picked up one of the real heavy duty agricultural links, the top link, that's adjustable, threaded with time joints on the end. Now I know this is not a permanent solution, but it's gonna be strong. There's no issue about that. If this thing can pull a 16,000 pound plow and not break, I'm not gonna have any issues with it keeping my 5,000 pound truck, keeping the axle centered. It runs a 1 inch bolt. Okay, I got a grade 8 1 inch bolt here. It's 1 1/8 threads on the outside. Dude, it's solid. Okay, rock solid. I built this new track bar mount here that utilizes the factory holes. I had to open them up because I stepped these up to 3/4 inch bolts. So that's running 3/4 inch by 5 inch grade 8 bolts holding the track bar in here. I gotta take the track bar out one more time, and when I do, it's easier to just pull this out and unthread it out the other end. So, and it's actually easier to actually just unbolt this whole mount and pull the whole mount out and unthread it. So that's what I'm gonna do. But once I get the nut for the other side, which I'll show you here in a second, this is gonna get welded into the actual spring mounts here, and that's gonna be almost double the strength of the factory track bar mount, and it's about 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches lower than the factory mount. So it's like a track bar drop mount, really. And then what I ended up doing here, let me adjust the camera just a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. Come on, light and adjust. There we go. Alright, so this center section of the track bar is the factory Super Duty solid track bar. It's about 1.5 inches thick, solid steel. So what I did is I took that agricultural link here and I cut it and sleeved it. I had to do a little bit of grinding on this, but it almost was a slip-in fit. It was actually a really nice fit. And slipped that into both sides, welded it all up. I used my MIG welder, and I did a little bit of stick welding on it too, just to make sure I got like 6 passes on each side. I ground everything real deep. I mean, it's welded solid. It might not be the prettiest thing, but it's damn sure welded solid. So that's how that worked out. I'm gonna come over here and show you this mount. Alright guys, so this is the mount that I figured out here on the axle side for the track bar. What I ended up doing was just cut off the factory ball joint mount, and I fabbed up this bracket here. It's all, again, 3/16 plate steel. It's been all MIG welded together. I got it tied into the actual piece here. The original shock mount is. It's like 1/4 inch thick steel plate on the axle. Got it all tied in, all down here, because this is all steel on this side. The other side, this part's all cast, but it's all steel on this side because it's the actual radius arm mount, where on the other side it's actually cast in the differential center housing. So that's in here absolutely rock solid. It ain't ever going anywhere. The only place I didn't weld is right here on the top where my spring mount that I made, because I want that spring mount to be able to come in and out. But this right here, this is reverse thread, so I have to order a nut from Fastenal, which they have. It's 1 1/8 by I think 14 or whatever the thread pitch is, but it's $15 just for that one nut. But that'll give me the ability to lock this all in, and then, you know, adjustments on this as easy as just turning it. So again, this is running a 1-inch grade 5, or I'm sorry, grade 8 1-inch bolt on this side, which is absolutely just ridiculously strong. This is 1 1/8 here, so that ought to hold up pretty good. And this side, the spring mount is exactly the same as the other side, where it's tied into the C and tied into the channel there, and did the same thing. Let me move the camera real quick and I'll show you what I did with the spring mounts and shock mounts, everything over here. Alright, again, you can see from this angle, I built this plate that's tied into the factory knuckle here with the factory bolt, and I bridged it across to this side, and I got grade 8 bolt holding that into that steel plate here, which is the bump stop mount. So basically just raise the bump stops up, which is fine. And then the shock mount, same thing over here, utilizing the factory Super Duty shock mount. Had to put a spacer bolt in there, and these are loose right now because I'm still kind of haven't buttoned everything up, but utilizing that factory mount, that's going to work great. Same thing up here. All I did was unbolt the shock mount, moved it up, put the bottom bolt into the top hole, welded it across. I did have to come up into here into the fender well and just do a little bit of trimming from under the hood to clearance that, but no big deal. Sorry about that, bumped the tripod. And you can see I'm still utilizing the factory spring mounts and everything, and that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, let me show you what I can do with the steering. Alright, when it comes to the steering, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a new center link that goes from the steering box to the tie rod here, and I'm just going to grind this to fit inside the factory Super Duty sleeve. I'm going to put it inside the sleeve, and I'm going to weld it all up. Now that's only going to give me one full turn adjustment on this. I won't be able to utilize the sleeve, but all this adjustment really does is center the steering wheel, which is not that big of a deal, and your actual toe adjustment you can achieve through your actual tie rod down here. So that's going to be a pretty simple, straightforward fix for the steering, and we'll be up and running. And the front suspension anyways. Now I got to do brakes, which isn't going to be too big of a deal. I'm just going to have to, I got to get calipers, caliper mounts, brake pads, and I got to hook up brake hoses and brake lines, and then I'll be ready for wheels and tires. So that's the front end. I'll show you what I got going on here in the back. Alright guys, so here's the full float Sterling 10.5 back axle in here. With the springs, you know, mount to mount is absolutely identical. So basically, I dropped my 9-inch axle out, slid this one up underneath, jacked it up into place, and we're ready to go. I had to get some new U-bolts, which I got from Skyjacker. They're 12.5 inches long, I believe, 3 5/8 inside diameter, and they're going to work just perfect. They come up and through, and be able to use the factory mounts, the factory top plates, all that stuff. So that makes this actually pretty damn straightforward when it comes to bolting the back axle in. then I'll have to hook up brakes, so I'm going to end up with 4-wheel disc brakes on this truck. I got to hook up the parking brake, which shouldn't be too terrible, but I'm going to have to figure it out anyways. And then one big issue back here in the back is drive shaft length. And you can see here with my slip yoke pushed in just about all the way, still not quite long enough because I don't even have the drive flange on the pinion there yet. So there's going to be some issues here. I'm going to look into getting a smaller, shorter slip yoke and see if I can't cut some splines off and see if I can get that to work. If not, I'm going to have a rear drive shaft made for it, which if I'm going to get a rear drive shaft made, it'll be a Tom Woods, and it's going to be $450. But I still haven't done the shackle flip yet, so I don't know the exact ride height of the back axle yet. So we'll go from there once I get the shackle flip done. Yeah, and that shackle flip, I'm ended up just buying the prefab one from Jeff's Bronco Graveyard. It's like $169. It's 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch and 5/16 plate, I think. It's a really nice unit. It bolts into the factory location. It'll give me 4 inches of lift in the back, which is gonna level out my ride height, and I'm gonna have this thing just about where I want it, and then it'll be wheels and tires, which is gonna be a pretty solid investment. I really want to run a set of 40s, I think, but I'm probably gonna end up having to buy 37s because I just don't know if I'm gonna have the money to step up to a set of 40s. But I'll have plenty of steering clearance, plenty of everything to run a set of 40s. So, anyways, this will be part 2 update video. Once I get this thing sitting on wheels and tires, I'll do another update video, and then we're gonna take this son of a bitch out wheeling, see what breaks first. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be in my axles. Probably going to be output shafts coming out of the transfer case. Right now, if I run this factory drive shaft, it's 1310 CV U-joint, and it's got new U-joints, but the actual centerpiece of the CV is pretty wore out. So that might be the first thing that breaks. But we'll see. I don't think I'm going to be breaking axle shafts, so not these Super Duty axles in this truck anyways. But look for some update videos coming soon. Plugging away at this whenever I get a little bit extra time, a little bit extra money, and we'll finish it up, and then we'll take the son of a bitch out and go wheeling. Alright guys, talk to you later.